Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead in the expansive conference hall, illuminating eager faces that shifted with anticipation. George Lawson stood backstage, tension coiling in his stomach like a tightly wound spring. He gripped his notes tightly, their edges digging into his palms, a lifeline amid this sea of uncertainty. The air hummed with chatter, a prelude to the moment he both yearned for and dreaded. 5 minutes to go, a stage manager called out, slicing through the din. The applause surged like an electric wave, filling him with both excitement and dread. The sound echoed harshly in his chest, mingling with the quick thud of his heart. He sucked in a deep breath, taking in the scents of cologne and polished wood, yet lingering beneath all of it were memories he wished he could forget. The wave of anticipation twisted abruptly when George's gaze found her, Sarah Mitchell, standing in the back, illuminated under the harsh lights. Panic tightened around his throat, memories thrumming to life, pulling him back to that summer day turned tragic. The laughter had transformed into screams, forever altering the fabric of their friendship. Guilt sunk its claws deeper the moment he remembered the friend he hadn't been able to save. "Am I ready for this?" he whispered to himself, the weight of his doubts heavy against the backdrop of hope surrounding him. While the audience sat eager, cheering for the message of resilience he hoped to deliver, he felt fractured inside, a boy lost beneath the facade of a man. "George!" came the stage manager's voice again, punctuated with urgency. It was time. George felt the conflicting tides of emotions swirl within him, a blend of anxiety and determination. The applause rose again, drowning his thoughts in a flood of sound. He took a tentative step toward the bright stage lights, the warmth quickly wrapping around him, though he felt chilled inside. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice just steady enough to avoid betraying his turmoil. As he scanned the audience, he was struck by the smiles, the encouragement radiating from their faces. Yet Sarah's gaze stood out, a mix of warmth and uncertainty that tightened his chest. "I'm here to talk about resilience," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "About standing strong after the storm." Each word resonated, yet the weight of his confession cowered just beneath the surface. Thoughts of laughter and late-night drives flashed in his mind, stirring emotions he had long kept hidden. The shadows of loss swirled around him, loss that had clawed at his conscience for years. "But before I can inspire you," he said, allowing vulnerability to seep into his tone, "I must confront the truth within myself." These words echoed, each syllable a step towards facing his past. The audience's applause blurred into a dull roar, his heart racing faster. Here he stood, on the edge of revelation, ready to peel back the layers he had crafted for years. And as he stepped further into the spotlight, something shifted within him. The moment had come to acknowledge everything he had buried for too long. It was time. The stage lights faded slowly, merging into a soft glow as George stepped into a different reality, the past emerging like a butterfly unfurling its wings. Suddenly, he wasn't in the conference hall anymore. He was back to that fateful afternoon, a time when laughter echoed across the sun-drenched fields and life was untainted by tragedy. Flashes of a warm day enveloped him, the sun shining brightly as a group of friends stood around an old truck, laughter spilling into the Texas air. They were young, reckless, and blissfully ignorant of what lay ahead. George could hear the echoes of their voices, each banter and jest a melody of joy, and he smiled, despite the sting of nostalgia. "Come on, George, you can't let Sarah beat you." Mike's teasing voice rang out as they gathered for an impromptu race to the pond. Mike, with his easy charm, had always invigorated every moment, while Sarah, with her radiant smile, stood at the edge, urging them on. "Are you scared, Lawson?" she called, laughter lacing her tone. "You know I'll win." Challenge accepted, George thought as he sprinted forward, blurred by youthful aggression and unyielding spirit. He fleetingly glanced at Sarah. She hadn't changed, still as bright and encouraging, her cheer pushing him forward like the sun warming his back. Connection illuminated their dynamics, an unspoken bond that felt too significant to be mere friendship. But all of those feelings spiraled towards darkness in one tragic moment. A flash of metal, a thunderous sound, lives shattered within a day. The cruel twist of fate caught them like a delicate spider web, trapping their laughter and joy into an inescapable void. As George lifted his head, the vision faded and he stood engulfed in darkness, a chilling wave as the memories morphed into chaos, the sound of sirens piercing through the harmonious rumblings of the past. The glistening water became a haunting reminder of helplessness as he fought through the horror of the accident. In those harrowing moments, George remembered Sarah by his side, navigating through trauma and emotions barely understood. The two of them had acted instinctively, rushing toward the scene, their hearts pounding, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Yet, even as they pushed through the chaos, confusion twisted into sorrow as they witnessed a tragedy unfold. "Help is on the way," George shouted, his voice hoarse, desperation sinking deep. He hurried through the wreckage, each heartbeat resonating with memories, not just of loss, but of everything they had built together in those fleeting moments. "Stay with me, please," Sarah's voice called out, her hands trembling as she cradled the head of the wrecked figure. George could see the panic in her eyes, and in that instant their bond crystallized. Two people united in shared trauma, born from the ashes of a horror neither could control. But in the aftermath, the shadows loomed larger. The survivors were left tortured by unanswerable questions, burdened by guilt. Could I have done more? What if I had acted faster? These questions echoed painfully in the corners of their minds. Suddenly the promise of a future grew dim as George fought to break free of the specters haunting his conscience. His friendship with Sarah transformed as they retreated into solitude, each carrying the weight of survival in different ways. George found himself grappling with guilt, a survivor mourning his fallen friends while Sarah struggled with her own demons, fighting against memories that haunted her every waking moment. In the present, George's heart ached, but it was more than just the shadows of loss. It was the recognition of love left unspoken. It twisted painfully inside him, each passing day accentuating the unresolved tension between them. He missed their laughter, their easy camaraderie, but a rift grew deeper, fed by the pain of their shared trauma and the fear of facing each other once again. Did she ever think about him? The question clawed at his thoughts as he looked up again, snapping back to the bustling world of the present. As he prepared to step back into the light, another memory flooded him, a moment shared once, alone in the ambulance bay, where it felt as if only they existed in a cocoon of understanding. "Do you ever think about what happened?" Sarah had whispered, their emotions raw and open as sirens sang in the distance. "I try not to," he replied, mind clouded with grief, "but it lingers, it always will." Her eyes had shimmered with unshed tears, navigating the narrow line between fear and bravery. "I don't want to be haunted by this, by him. Yet, I feel like a ghost myself." Their lives, they had been intertwined, yet had splintered apart like broken glass. Maybe they were meant for more than just survival. Maybe their bond could mend what was shattered. The thought hung in the air, a haunting echo he couldn't ignore anymore. With each recollection, George felt a flicker of hope rising, nudging him toward a future where healing was possible. He recalled how they challenged each other, how through the pivotal moments of that day, they had grown beyond mere acquaintances, navigators through a shared trauma. As the spotlight beckoned back to him, George steadied his breath and lifted his head. Just like that day when laughter ruled his world, he would face the present. The shared journey of resilience and healing awaited. This time, with a heart full of hope, he would not falter. The warm stage lights enveloped George as he resumed speaking, but a heaviness settled around him, a weight of unspoken truths swirling in the air. Despite the applause, he felt detached, like a figure in a faded photograph, existing yet unseen. Life outside pulsed vibrantly, while he remained in the shadows of past regrets. "Sometimes life feels like a beautiful melody," he began, searching deep within for words that could bridge the distance he felt. "But it is often haunted by dissonance, drowning us in sorrow." Each note hung tenderly in the air, resonating with aching honesty. His mind flickered back to darker moments following the accident, days when he grappled with guilt. One sunset, he sat alone in the dimly lit bar, the guitar in his lap feeling foreign against his skin. The chaotic chatter around him faded into a dull hum, overshadowed by the deeper turmoil pulsing in his chest. "Hey man, you're barely here anymore," Jake had said, sliding onto the stool. George forced a smile, even as it felt like a mask. Their laughter faded into echoes of the past. George was adrift, suspended in a world where shared joy had been replaced by silence. "I've just been busy," he lied, twisting the cold bottle in his hands, unwilling to lay bare the truth of his haunted heart. "Busy masking pain, maybe." Jake shot back gently. The sincerity in his friend's voice hung in the air like the last note of a song unresolved. "You can't keep shutting everyone out." Each word landed hard, digging into emotions George tried to bury. He leaned back, eyeing the ghost of his former self staring back from the bar mirror, a face filled with regret and unresolved grief. Jake didn't understand, but George was too trapped in the shadows to articulate the suffocating weight of survival. Weeks turned into months and life moved around him, while George remained ensnared in the past. Friends laughed and found love, yet he watched as if standing on the outside of a glass box, disconnected from the joy of living. One breezy afternoon, George drove aimlessly through the familiar backroads of Texas, feelings swirling like dust kicked up in the wind. He found his way to his childhood home, an anchor against fading memories. The warmth of the sun bathed the fields in golden hues, yet he felt the chill of sorrow gnawing at his core. Stepping onto the porch, he found solace in the gentle creaks of the wood beneath him. The place was a vault of nostalgia, laughter woven into every corner, yet within him shadows stretched longer than ever. He picked up his guitar, letting the strings hum a soft tune, one of longing and heartbreak. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," he whispered softly into the stillness, each chord pulling at the latent emotions too long stifled. Days blended into nights, the cycle of grief unwavering. Alone in his room, the guitar became an extension of himself, where melodies emerged like tears flowing freely, yet each song felt incomplete, echoing only half the truth. George strummed softly, wrapping himself in notes that transcended the sorrow. The sound of a knock broke through the murky silence. It was Sarah standing there, uncertain and framed by sunlight. The wistful smile she wore felt like a distant memory of sunshine cutting through clouds. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. George hesitated. The memories surged, crashing like waves against a rocky shore. Her presence was both a balm and an ache, a reminder of everything they had lost, tangled with everything they could have shared. "Yeah, of course," he managed, stepping aside, his heart racing with the familiarity of what had once been. "You've been missed, George," she murmured, glancing at the guitar, the instrument that felt like a dam holding back floodwaters of repressed feelings. I feel stuck," he admitted, voice low, the shadow of guilt slipping between them. "I don't know why I can't move on." "Because grief doesn't work that way," Sarah replied, her eyes soft yet steady. "You feel it, and sometimes it takes longer than you'd hope to embrace it, but you can't do it alone." The warmth between them flickered, a forgotten fire catching spark. As they sat together, sharing stories of loss and laughter, it became clear that the isolation he employed had finally met its match, an understanding that echoed through their shared history. "Maybe we can help each other," Sarah suggested gently, her eyes reflecting understanding. For the first time in what felt like eternity, a flicker of hope ignited in George's heart. The winding road to healing still lay ahead, yet he was reminded that he didn't have to traverse it alone. This realization settled sweetly into his chest, a promise of renewed friendship, a way to face the past together. In that moment, George knew he would shed the weight of loneliness that had held him captive for too long. Together they could find a path forward, a melody that embraced both sorrow and joy, a story waiting to be written anew. The warmth of Sarah's presence in the small room softened the stark edges of George's solitude. They sat together, the air between them charged with a mix of unresolved tension and budding hope, as they began to sift through the tapestry of their shared pain. "Let's write something," Sarah suggested, pulling her knee up to her chest, her gaze steady as she watched him. "I know you still have songs in you, George. Let's put that pain to music." "Right with you," George echoed, skepticism creeping into his voice. His self-doubt whispered loudly in his mind, casting shadows on the light that began to emerge between them. "I haven't written anything worthwhile since everything changed," she finished for him, her tone soft yet firm. "It doesn't matter what it was. What matters is what comes next." The thought of creating together felt foreign, yet familiar, like putting on shoes he thought had long gone missing. George shifted uneasily, gripping the guitar that lay across his lap, an old friend he'd neglected. He picked it up slowly, letting a few tentative chords fill the air as he searched for a tune. "Let's start simple," Sarah encouraged, her warm smile urging him on as she leaned closer, the sunlight framing her face like a soft halo. "Just a line or two." Together they riffed on the strings, the guitar creating a gentle foundation for their collaboration. He began strumming a simple melody, the notes catching at the edges of his heart. Several false starts led to sweet harmony, where the pain and bitterness began to soften, leaving a raw honesty behind. "I remember driving with you, windows down, the sun blazing," George began, the memories unfurling like ribbons of color. "Those days felt like freedom, like nothing could touch us." "Yeah, like we were invincible," Sarah agreed, her voice tender as she joined in, her confidence building. "But we weren't, were we? Life's unpredictability has a way of humbling us." Bit by bit, a song began to emerge, a synchronization of their rhythms, weaving together memories tinged with both sorrow and light. They laughed softly over the lines they crafted, with each verse revealing the struggles they had faced along the path of grief. "Maybe the truth shatters, but together we rise," she sang softly, the words flowing. "Like flowers in the cracks of concrete. A rebirth." "Yeah, a rebirth," he whispered, captivated by the moment. George felt a warmth spreading within him, a gentle loosening of the chains he had worn for too long. This was more than just a song. It was a reclamation of lost time and a celebration of resilience. They spent hours in that room, a sanctuary where they could peel back the layers of their hearts, revealing their fears and hopes. In the creative flow, George felt joy rising like the tide, washing over the remnants of darkness he had thought permanent. The final chords echoed softly, hanging in the air like silver threads, uniting what had been fractured. The song was unfinished, but it was a promise, an invitation to continue the journey towards healing. "Shall we perform it?" Sarah suggested, a twinkle igniting in her eyes. "There's a little open mic night at the cafe down the street. It might be a good way to share what we've created." The thought sent a rush of anxiety through George, yet excitement fluttered just below the surface, battling his reservations. The notion of sharing their raw emotions with others felt terrifying, but exhilarating too. "Okay," he agreed hesitantly, his voice steadier than before. "Let's do it." As they prepared for the open mic night, George felt a renewed sense of purpose settle over him, wrapping around his heart like a comforting embrace. Together they wrote a few more verses, solidifying the story they had begun to tell, a chronicle of vulnerability, resilience, and the healing power of connection. The cafe buzzed with life as they arrived, the hum of conversation blending with the aroma of coffee swirling in the air. George's stomach churning in anticipation, he spotted the small stage nestled in the corner where the balm of music transfixed those who dared to share their hearts. With trembling hands, he adjusted the guitar strap, glancing at Sarah. She smiled back, her eyes shimmering with encouragement. They climbed onto the stage, hearts pounding in sync. "Hey there," Sarah greeted warmly, her voice cutting through the din. "We're George and Sarah, and we want to share something that means a lot to us." The audience shifted, intrigued, as George felt the warmth of their attention. Suddenly, the world shrank to just the two of them and the music. As they began to play, the melody wrapped around them like a familiar blanket, and the lyrics flowed like healing water. Each note, each word weaved the fabric of their lives into something beautiful. Old wounds intertwined with hope and love, blooming amidst despair. As he sang, George felt the chains of guilt and despair begin to break. Eyes closed, he lost himself in the music, embracing the vulnerability of the moment. The song echoed in the cafe, pulling their listeners into the narrative, a story of despair transformed into resilience. When the final notes faded into the embrace of applause, George felt something he hadn't experienced in far too long, a rush of warmth that spread through his body, igniting a newfound sense of purpose. As they stepped off the stage, laughter and conversations thrummed around them. Sarah turned to him, her face radiant. "We did it," she said, a contagious smile lighting up her features. He nodded, breathless, flooded with a mix of joy and disbelief. They had taken the first step together, not only as musicians, but as partners in healing. "Thank you for being here, Sarah," George said sincerely, the words flowing from his heart. "I'm ready to face whatever comes next." The weight of loneliness began to lift, revealing the blossoming friendship beneath, a connection reborn amidst the ashes of the past. George knew that while the journey of healing would continue, he wouldn't have to walk it alone. Side by side, they would embrace the unknown, ready to write the next chapter together. The following weeks provided George with a newfound resilience. The song they had written together echoed within him, a vibrant heartbeat that fortified his spirit. Over the days that transformed into weeks, he found solace in the shared moments with Sarah, a friendship sprouting like wildflowers through concrete, beautiful and unexpected. But amidst the warmth of healing, shadows still loomed. George's feelings toward Sarah began to swirl into complexities he hadn't anticipated. Each laugh they shared brought him closer to remembering the joys of their past, while simultaneously reigniting the pain of what would never be. Late one evening, after a productive writing session, George sat at the old wooden table in his kitchen, the remnants of dinner untouched. The city outside dimmed into a comforting hush, but inside him, turmoil brewed. He fumbled through the scattered pages of their recent songs, glancing at lyrics reflecting hope and renewal, yet recognizing the dissonance in his heart. "What's on your mind?" Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts, warm and inviting as she leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, her gaze steady. He set the papers down, inhaling deeply. "I love writing with you," he began, searching for the right words. "But there's something I haven't addressed." Faint worry flickered in her eyes. "What is it?" With a heavy heart, George twisted the fabric of his shirt, trying to tame the storm within. "I know we've been moving forward, but I can't help feeling that—" He hesitated, the words clawing at his throat. "That you're a reminder of everything I lost. I need to process this outside the songs." Sarah's expression shifted, a flash of hurt tempered by understanding. "You're still fighting ghosts, George. We're both doing that. But avoidance won't help. It will only lead us to our own battlegrounds. But I don't want to drag you back into that dark place," he argued, his voice rising as frustration crept in, fear swirling vivid and sharp. "It's not just memories. It's guilt. Being with you is both exhilarating and terrifying. I'm scared of losing you again. What if I can't face the past? Right now you're projecting what's happened before on something new, on us," she countered gently, the passion in her eyes tempered by patience. "We can't let past losses dictate how we treat each other moving forward. I'm not going anywhere." His heart squeezed painfully, battling between his yearning for connection and the instinct to retreat into solitude. "I just don't want to hurt you again," he said softly, retreating into the depths of vulnerability as shadows whispered doubts over him. "George," she stepped forward, her hand resting against his, warmth radiating from her touch. "You have to let yourself feel something real. That fear you're holding on to, it doesn't have to be your truth. We're not here to replace what you lost. We're here to honor it with every note we write and every moment we share." Tears prickled at the corners of his eyes, and he blinked them back, wrestling against the tumult. In the silences that followed, George realized how deep the roots of his fear ran. Grief wasn't a singular entity. It enveloped joy, connection, even love, all things he desperately craved. His throat was tight as he opened up. "I feel stuck in this cycle of fearing the past but yearning for what we could be. It's pulling me apart." His body trembled with emotional fatigue, the weight of contradiction folding over him. "Then let's break that cycle together. I'm here," Sarah implored, her voice tempered with resolve. "Let's confront the fear, write a song about it, scream it into the skies, transform it into something beautiful." Her words struck him deeply, igniting a flicker of hope. "But what if we write and it feels like too much? Then it just means we're honest about where we are. We embrace the hurt and let it guide us," she replied, an unwavering light in her voice. George took a step back, the weight of her understanding washing over him. As he met her gaze, the walls he had constructed began to wane. "All right, let's confront it," he agreed, a newfound determination igniting within. They gathered once again in the familiar embrace of his kitchen. The pages were scattered across the table, an array of unfinished verses glowing under the warm light, promising and laden with exploration. As the night deepened, they wove the tumult of feelings into lyrics that cut deep, merging vulnerability with delicacy. They crafted an emotional tempest, addressing every fear that loomed over their connection, the fragility of hope, the ghosts of loss, and the tenderness of love reborn from ashes. "I'm afraid to love," George sang, pushing his throat to the limits, "afraid of holding something precious tightly, only to watch it slip underneath my fingers." Sarah chimed in, her voice blending perfectly, singing of yearning and the struggle for trust, threading together their stories like a lifeline out of darkness. "But still I rise. I will not let fear define my choices," she sang, channeling the strength needed to embrace the now and the unknown. With every note, George felt the chains slowly disintegrating, threads of hope tangling with vulnerability. As they composed, he realized his fear of loss was an open wound, but the healing had begun. The song transformed into a mirror of their struggles, a powerful declaration filled with raw emotions. The air between them shimmered, an electric undercurrent that promised deeper connection. The final chords struck, resonating like a pulse against the walls. Breathless, they exchanged glances, exhilarated yet exhausted. It felt refreshing, cathartic. The cycle of isolation momentarily shattered through the shared creation. That's the heart of it, George. We faced it, Sarah said, her voice awash in adrenaline, and we can keep facing it together. As waves of emotion subsided, George recognized the profound truth they had unearthed. The ongoing dance of vulnerability and healing would not be without its struggles. But here, with Sarah, a sense of possibility burgeoned, a promise to navigate the tides of their fears, unfurling together. "Thank you for pushing me," he murmured, gratitude swelling within him. "Always," she replied, a genuine smile blooming. The walls began to vanish, leaving two souls entwined not only through music, but through a mutual understanding of grief, loss, and the power of rebirth. In that moment, George understood. A love forged in shared struggle was a love worthy of nurturing, resilient enough to weather any storm. Together, they stood on the threshold of the unknown, ready to embrace every note of their intertwined journey, a symphony of healing echoing ahead. As the weeks flowed into a rich tapestry of music and shared experiences, George and Sarah found themselves enveloped in transformation. The song they had created transcended mere notes and lyrics, becoming the heartbeat of George's renewed spirit. Each rehearsal was a delicate dance between vulnerability and acceptance, layering their emotions into an anthem echoing healing. One sunny afternoon, seeking inspiration from the sweeping Texas landscape, they decided on a road trip. The world outside seemed endless, a vibrant canvas painted with rustling fields and gentle hills. With the windows down, the warm breeze wrapped around them, carrying their laughter like whispers of newfound hope. "Do you remember those long drives we used to take?" Sarah asked, her voice playful, sparking warmth in George's chest. "Just you, me, and the music." "Yeah, like we could take on anything," George replied with a chuckle, recalling their younger selves, so full of dreams. "Maybe we still can," she replied, flashing him a daring grin. She began scrolling through her phone, selecting an upbeat song that filled the car with exuberance. They both started singing along, voices blending seamlessly, joy radiating as they tapped into the carefree spirit of their past. The journey brought them to a quaint roadside diner, a nostalgic place with flickering neon lights. Inside, the familiar clatter of dishes and murmured conversations buzzed warmly around them, inviting and comforting. They took a seat by the window, sunlight bathing them in golden warmth. "I've been thinking," Sarah said, her tone both playful and earnest. "What if we performed our song at a festival this time? Not just another open mic, but something bigger." George felt a ripple of anxiety mixed with excitement at the thought. "That feels like a big leap," he admitted, uncertainty creeping in. "What if we stumble? What if nobody connects with it? Then we learn from it," she countered, determination lighting her eyes. "But what if it touches someone, inspires them? We'll never know unless we try." As she spoke, George felt her passion seep into him. The idea began to take root. "You're right. I just don't want to let the fear of failure hold us back. Let's do it," he finally said, a sense of boldness blossoming within him. The following weeks were a whirlwind of rehearsals, creativity flowing as they navigated the ups and downs of preparing for their debut. Each session became a lesson, filled with growing anticipation and mounting nerves. George found himself leaning on Sarah, who encouraged him to dive deeper into his emotions and explore the intricacies of their music. The night before the festival arrived, charged with excitement and anxiety. As they approached the festival grounds, the energy pulsated around them, wrapping them in a warm embrace of possibility. George felt that old familiar knot twisting in his stomach, and he turned to Sarah. "Are you ready?" she asked, her unwavering confidence grounding him. "Ready as I'll ever be," he replied, determination mingling with anxiety. As they stepped onto the stage, the world outside faded away. The crowd grew silent, their rapt attention like a spotlight on them. "Hey everyone, we're George and Sarah," George announced, the nervous tremor in his voice born from both fear and excitement. "We want to share a song about resilience, friendship, and the journey that binds us together." Their eyes locked. An unspoken promise to support and uplift each other resonated in that moment. When they began to play, the first notes soared into the cool night air. The melody flowed through them, transforming their collective experiences into a powerful narrative. Their voices intertwined as they sang about their pasts, weaving together struggles and hope, grief and healing. With each verse, George could feel the overwhelming weight of his fears starting to lift. Every line sung became an act of release. Vulnerability was no longer something to shy away from. It flooded the stage, invigorating him. The crowd responded vocally, swaying and responding with warmth, connecting to the essence of their story. As the final notes reverberated through the air, a crescendo of applause filled his ears. George blinked, almost in disbelief, as he stood at the edge of the stage, flooded with joy and gratitude. "Did you feel that?" Sarah exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over as they reached the backstage area. "I did," George said, breathless from the experience. "That was more than I ever imagined it could be." In that moment, George knew they had transformed not just through music, but by sharing a piece of their hearts. Their performances resonated deeply, not only with themselves, but with the audience, who found solace in their journey. As the festival wound down and night embraced them, George felt the weight of transformation drape over him like a comforting blanket. It was a profound shift, a rebirth flowing from the music, intertwined with connection and vulnerability. They stood together, bathed in the dim glow of the aftermath, their laughter mingling with echoes of applause lingering in the air. What once haunted him was now a part of his story, but it no longer defined him. Instead, it became a stepping stone toward resilience. "Thank you for this, for believing in us," George told Sarah, sincerity coloring his words. "Always," she replied, her smile infectious, her eyes gleaming with promise. Together they had faced the storm of uncertainty and found their footing within the dance of healing. Here, on the cusp of something beautiful, George embraced the reality that their story was far from over. There was a world waiting for them, new songs to write, new connections to forge. For united in their dreams and experiences, they were ready to explore the next chapter of their lives, embracing every note of hope and love echoing in their hearts. The morning after the festival broke with a vibrant sunrise, casting golden rays over the Texas landscape. George stepped onto his porch, holding his guitar close. The air was crisp, carrying the fragrant notes of blooming jasmine and freshly brewed coffee wafting from the kitchen. He felt an undeniable tranquility settle within him, a sensation he hadn't experienced for years. The exhilaration of last night pulsed in his veins, reminding him of the transformative performance that had forged a deep connection with the audience. He replayed in his mind how he and Sarah had opened their hearts to the crowd, bearing their struggles and triumphs through the power of music. Later that evening, as twilight washed over the world in shades of soft lavender and deep gold, Sarah arrived. Her spirit was effervescent, and George couldn't help but feel uplifted by her presence. "How about we grab a coffee and talk about what's next?" she suggested, her eyes sparkling with possibility. George nodded and they headed to their favorite local cafe, the familiar warmth and comfort wrapping around them like an old song. "How are you really feeling about everything that happened?" Sarah asked, her voice gentle yet probing. "I feel ready to embrace what's next," George replied, a smile creeping across his lips. "Last night was a turning point for me. It felt like I was stepping into the light after being lost for so long. We have to keep riding that wave," she said, her fingers excitedly tapping the table. "I have an idea. We should write a new song that captures everything we've been through, something that speaks to hope and moving forward." "That sounds perfect," he agreed, the inspiration igniting within him at the thought. "Let's remind ourselves and everyone else that healing is possible, that every scar tells a story worth sharing." Fueled by their renewed enthusiasm, they began to craft a new melody in the days that followed. Their sessions were filled with laughter, the exchange of ideas sparking creativity that felt both exhilarating and freeing. As they poured their hearts into the music, George found that the weight of his past began to dissipate, replaced by a burgeoning sense of hope. Before long, the news of their upcoming performance at a community charity event spread like wildfire. Anxiety and excitement danced in tandem within George as they prepared. The event grew closer, and he felt the familiar flutter of nerves settle into his stomach. On the night of the event, the atmosphere buzzed with life. Families clustered together, children laughed, and there was a palpable sense of community. George and Sarah were welcomed with open arms, the warmth filling him with a sense of belonging. "Ready to rock the stage?" Sarah asked, her vibrant energy lifting his spirits. "As ready as I'll ever be," George replied, taking a deep breath. They stepped onto the stage, and for the first time he felt a sense of calm wash over him. He met Sarah's gaze, her unwavering support anchoring him in that moment. "Hello, everyone. We're George and Sarah, and we're excited to share our story with you tonight," George announced, a smile breaking free as the crowd erupted in cheers. As they began their song, the rich notes resonated through the air. They sang of resilience, of hope, of survival intertwined with love and friendship. The crowd swayed, lost in the melody, and George could see the light in their eyes as they connected with the song's messages. The performance ended with a thunderous round of applause, reverberating through his chest. Breathless, he and Sarah exchanged glances, filled with exhilaration. "We did it," Sarah said, her voice ringing with joy. "That was incredible." Afterward, a small child approached them, her eyes wide with admiration. "Can I sing with you next time?" she asked, her innocence weaving through the joyous chaos. George knelt to her level, warmth pooling in his heart. "We would love that. You've got to keep singing, okay?" Their bond with the audience strengthened, blossoming from shared stories and collective resilience. George felt a weight lift from his shoulders, an open space for new possibilities. "Thank you for believing in us, for being my partner in this," he expressed to Sarah. "Always, George, we're in this together," she said, her smile radiant against the backdrop of their success. United by their shared experiences and newfound purpose, George and Sarah looked forward to writing more songs, weaving hope into every note. As they stepped into a new chapter of their lives, they embraced the journey ahead, ready to share their story with the world, one chord at a time. Their hearts swelled with promise, echoing through the night, surrounded by a community that had become family. With the past behind them and hope ahead, they found freedom in their music, ready to face whatever came next.